Hi, and welcome to New God Sunday School. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee, and Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, The Adventures of Adam Starr and the Solar Legion. I'm also the author of WITCHMAN, a new superhero comic book which recently had a successful Kickstarter campaign. So this is Superman's pal, the new Jimmy Olsen, number 148. Superman, it's too strong for you. We're finished. Extra, the Newsboy Legion meets the meanest man on Earth. There's a hole in the bottom of the sea, and nobody knows it's there, except Jimmy Olsen, Superman, and the Newsboy Legion, and oh yes. There's that tall, mysterious man who lives in Victorian splendor, the man who's proclaimed himself King of the World, Victor Volcanum, monarch of all he subdues. This is the end of an era. This is the final issue of Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen, that Jack Kirby's working on. We have one last adventure. After all the excitement, all the long-running plot threads have, for the most part, been put to rest. One last adventure to bring us home. Superman's pals are trapped in this cage. He's, pushing these two rocks apart that have slammed against him. Kind of, what is the Superman archetype? One of the earliest precursors to Superman we can point to would be Samson, and this is sort of Samson pushing the two columns apart, making the temple collapse, and it's a beautiful sequence. And we get a non-Jack Kirby Superman, but then here is a full Kirby Superman. That's usually the moments we get the full Kirby Supermans, when he's real tiny and in shadow, and it's a powerful sequence. I like it. And then he busts free, rips the cage up, doing all his Superman stuff. Victor Volcanum appears as a head in a floating globe, telling Superman the setup. And Victor Volcanum is, as I mentioned in the previous episode, it's sort of a riff on Master of the World, Captain Rober from stories of H.G. Wells, and also a movie starring Vincent Price, which is why I think Kirby gives him a little bit of a Vincent Price look. Then we get the origin story of Victor Volcanum. And again, it's a return to form. It's not too different from, the Mole Man or something, telling his little story of his balloon got trapped in this underground land. He learned to survive in the deep volcanic world, and he soon learned to like it and drink the lava and build an army of robots to be his worker drones and companions. And this diet of lava has made him immortal. And when I was working on superpowers, I planned to incorporate Victor Volcanum into the story, but I was going to tinker with his origin a little bit. I would prefer that he be tied into the larger apocalypse narrative, even though the Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen is really no longer part of that narrative. That book has sort of closed, and now it's on its own two legs. But I think those connections to Jack's larger New Gods mythology enrich this world. And so my idea for it was that Victor Volcanum was another one of those colorful characters from Apocalypse who is obsessed with a certain period of Earth, and he's sort of fixated on the Victorian, and that he's a rival of Darkseid. He's somebody who's high up in the hierarchy, but keeps getting in Darkseid's way. And so Darkseid decides to reassign him to Earth before the great war of the New Gods. And Darkseid acts like it's some kind of reward, some kind of great honor, like a great, giving him this whole world to rule over. But it's at a time when Earth is not, high up on the priorities of Darkseid. And so he's just sort of there waiting as like a sleeper agent, finds himself comfortable and drawn to the volcanic areas of the Earth that remind him of home. And sort of this assignment by Darkseid, kind of something like the Emperor assigns Duke Leto Atreides to the planet Dune, the planet Arrakis, where it seems like, this is some great honor. He's going to make a lot of money. Dune creates a lot of wealth, but that it's actually, like a political move meant to sort of, undermine this guy. In the case of Dune, it was, a trap for the Atreides family. Victor Volcanum is sort of out of Darkseid's hair. When it comes time to invade Earth, there's Victor Volcanum, very powerful, already set up, ready to go. And so he becomes, like Mantis, a very powerful weapon for Darkseid, but also, again, a possible dangerous rival. But alas, never got that far into superpowers to make that happen. One of the robots zaps the guys. Superman absorbs the brunt of the impact, picks up a rock, throws it. Superman then fires a missile of his own, a rock propelled into supersonic flight by the mightiest of arms. This is what is known as knocking the batters out of the box. And goes right through. Really great shot here, really great Superman moment. These last couple issues have been a lot of fun and sort of shows, what might have happened if Jack Kirby could have, continued on Superman and continued with a free reign. But that lack of like a free reign is sort of one of the things that made him want to get off of this book at his earliest convenience. Suddenly, the boiling fire pits erupt. Look out! Another deadly trap set up by Victor Volcanum. A spew of lava comes down. Superman, with his fists, opens up a fissure for the lava to come down. And this reminds me, there are references to the story of Superman made in a future issue of Commandy, where we find out about the last days of Superman and how he's disappeared, etched into the face of a rock. And this kind of reminds me of some of the things that happen in that story, where it's, Superman against geological upheaval, and this could very well be part of that. And now, while Superman's taking care of the lava flow, Jimmy Olsen is face to face with one of these robots. Jimmy Olsen gets the best moments of his career in this series with Jack Kirby, and he gets to be an action hero, and he's going up against this robot head to head, and he gives him a punch with all his might. He hurts his fist. I think I wrecked my hand on his steel hide, but this isn't possible. Why not? Olsen's no slouch. He might be championship material. Don't be ridiculous, Scrapper. None of us would stand a chance of defeating this thing unless we found the deactivator button, which I luckily did. Superman catches up with the kids, opens up the door. He's got a feeling it's a trap, so he goes in first. Again, I love these sort of shadowy images of Superman. You can picture the sort of slow motion version of this, like Reservoir Dogs or something, as they're all stepping into the room with some music playing. And then they get zapped with a brain blocker, another one of Victor Volcanum's devices. And he's getting his airship ready for his big assault that he's been planning. And he's got these little model cities, not unlike, something you'd see, again, in the Mole Man's lair. And here's his plan. He's got a little model going, reminiscent of what we saw with the Transylvane issue, this little Doomsday model where he's got a replica of his flying gondola that's going to send a sonic weapon down to the city of Metropolis and destroy it. Little model missiles to show what he would do to any jet that tried to stop him. And so now, Superman and Jimmy have their marching orders. Cataclysmic destruction's going on within Victor Volcanum's volcanic lair. Superman airlifts them out of there just as the island explodes and fades into nothing. Just, great sort of action finish for Jack Kirby's Superman finale. Angry Charlie, rendered in gray here, gets an ignominious return, not colored in his magenta and pink. He looks like he's been desiccated and killed and is being brought back as a trophy. Kind of a sad last moment for Angry Charlie under Jack's pen, although Angry Charlie will be back under other creators' hands. We get a little bit of an aerial dogfight going. The Whizwagon zaps his air gondola. Volcanum activates his spinner, his sonic weapon, looking a little bit like Brother Eye, who will show up in OMAC a little bit down the road. And the Whizwagon continues to fire. That weapon disintegrates their shells. Superman flies in and smashes down for his confrontation with the supervillain. Rather than be captured and humiliated by Superman, Victor Volcanum sets the self-destruct and blows up the whole gondola, hoping to take Superman with him, but obviously he's not familiar with who he's dealing with. And so ends Volcanum's madness. Wow, what a way to go. Volcanum is kaput. Thank goodness Superman's still with us. Yeah, and don't forget us. We almost scrubbed too. Which reminds me, there are big, shiny faucets in Metropolis just waiting to turn on for a guy who needs a bath. For me too, me too, me too. Stand by, Metropolis, we're coming home. The end. So they ride off into the sunset like classic heroes of old. We never got that confrontation with Morgan Edge where Clark Kent and Jimmy really cornered him and said, hey man, what's the deal? You better give us some answers or we are hauling your ass to the precinct and you can tell it to a judge. We never got that. And I get the feeling that had Jack continued on this, maybe that would have become a running gag that every adventure ends with them coming back to Morgan Edge for some answers and that slippery devil just keeps coming up with new excuses and it could become like a running joke. That would have really been a nice epilogue for all of this, for maybe some handcuffs to get slapped on Morgan Edge or some sort of reckoning, some sort of real reckoning. But he did manage to stall long enough for the series to end pretty much. I think it only runs like one more issue after this without Kirby, of course. And then we get a Mike Royer inked backup story, Tales of the DNA Project, Genetic Criminal. During the routine physical examination of a maturing DNA human, the subject, who represented a special experiment, suddenly became violent and attacked a security guard present in the room. Had he proved the theory that crime was transferable through a human cell? Was there such a thing as the genetic criminal? Quick, send a security patrol to the medical section right away. I'll teach you to get out of hand, you second-rate human. Try it, smart guy. Ugh. Rap. I don't think I've ever seen that before. I like that as a sound effect. When you rap somebody in the face to actually use rap. That does it. You're too dangerous to live. Yeah, I'll bet. Especially since you've learned why DNA subjects act this way. Ow, my hand! Okay, we'll take that gun. It's all over for you. And we do mean you. You're the foreign agent who entered the project in one of our uniforms. Intelligence just gave us a rundown on you. You got the information you came here for, but it backfired on you. Many DNA subjects acquire a sharp sense of ESP. This one discovered you at once. Later, you also showed a good aptitude in handling your fists and weapons, Model 4. Perhaps, sir, but it doesn't prove I will turn antisocial. And Model 4 never did, even though he was grown from the cell tissue of Floyd Bullets Barstow, a gangster executed for murder. Looking at this artwork, particularly this panel here, it looks like Jack's drawing Hitler. I mean, even like the shadow under the nose kind of looks like the mustache, the haircut, the crazed look in the eyes. And I mean, Jack's drawn Hitler plenty of times before, and that's how he draws him. And I wonder if the original idea here that Jack had was for this genetic criminal was that maybe in this DNA project to like really give the ultimate test of this idea of whether evil is a genetic condition. That they maybe had a tissue sample of Hitler and that they were going to clone him and raise him in a completely sort of pro-social environment and see if he still turns out to be a monster and that this would be the test. And seems to fit with like the themes that Jack would work on and science fiction kind of stuff and just the way that sort of cloned Hitler's show up in, sci-fi melodramatic fiction of the time, spy novels or whatever, or Wally Wood's canon, stuff like that. I wonder if, Jack had second thoughts. And so when it came time to write this little bit of verbiage that he sort of, changed it to a, random made up gangster, Floyd Bullets Barstow, where it kind of takes a little bit of the punch out of the idea, assigning it to a made-up gangster, who sounds like he's, from like the 1920s or something. But I get why he'd do that, having sort of second thoughts about doing a story where a clone of Hitler gets to play hero. Like, I understand the point that would be made there, that we have free will and we're not strictly the product of our genes, and that you could take, the worst person on earth, that same genetic material, could be nurtured or raised in a way that we're not fated by our genes. Like, it's an interesting story to tell. But yeah, using Hitler as the example, if that was his initial creative impulse, I can see why I'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna call an audible on this one. So that's it for Jack Kirby's Jimmy Olsen. Next time we'll have an exciting surprise story to check out. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee, and Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, The Adventures of Adam Star and the Solar Legion. I'm also the author of WITCHMAN, a new superhero comic book, which recently had a successful Kickstarter campaign. I'll see you next time for New God Sunday School.